Come out with us and play. Love your London. Have a banana. In today's episode of Love Your London, we're going to be looking at two exhibitions currently available in London. We'll be checking out Alice, Curiouser and Curiouser at the V&A, and then take a look at Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience in Shoreditch in East London. Yay! We're here in South Kent. We're going to the V&A. We're going to a special exhibition. Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland exhibition. We can't wait, and we're actually on the guest list. We won a competition.
Yep, that's right.
So really looking forward to this. This is fantastic. Love your London. This is what we're seeing. Curiouser and Curiouser. Oh, I can breathe again.
Yes.
Curiouser and Curiouser. We couldn't really chat too much inside the museum without annoying the paying customers, so I'm going to have to do a voiceover as we walk you through this. Now, as I'm sure you know, the V&A proper is free to visit, as are all national museums and galleries since 2001, but most museums have special exhibitions on throughout the year in order to raise funds. Now, we didn't pay for our visit, but this special Alice in Wonderland exhibition would normally set you back £20. You have to buy tickets in advance, and afterwards you are free, of course, to visit the rest of the museum. But is it worth the extra 20 quid to visit Alice, Curiouser and Curiouser? Well, we'll let you know shortly. We think that this is a very impressive exhibition. In one of the first rooms you get to see, as well as a skeleton of a real dodo, loads of original engravings made from Sir John Tenniel's original drawings. You also get to see manuscripts by Lewis Carroll himself, and detailed illustration plans of where each illustration should appear within the text. There's also a fantastic collection of posters for various 19th century theatre productions, as well as some fascinating examples of early merchandising, such as this biscuit tin and chessboard, which were released commercially as soon as the books became a success. There's a few rooms dedicated to how Alice in Wonderland was filmed, from an early 1903 silent movie, which at the time was the longest British moving picture, to more modern adaptations from the classic Walt Disney animated feature, the Tim Burton 2010 Oscar-winning movie, and everything in between, including adaptations from Spain, Czechoslovakia, and elsewhere. There's a really good use of projections as well. Some of them you can walk into. And others use this stunning 3D mapping to create an ever-changing psychedelic picnic table. Every time we looked at it, it would change, and this was really fun to watch. But our favourite use of projectors has to be this massive Cheshire cat here in the middle of one of the rooms, animating Tenniel's original iconic drawing, and it even purred at you. It was really lovely. There's loads of stuff about fashion too. Various costumes that have been inspired by Lewis Carroll's stories are in abundance. And there's loads of these to look at, and perfect also for those Instagram moments as well. Alice in Wonderland is a very trippy story, so there's an area, of course, dedicated to the world of psychedelia. Whether it's Jefferson Airplane's sublime song White Rabbit from 1967, a personal favourite of ours, or original copies of the fantastic Joseph McHugh posters of the Cheshire Cat and the White Rabbit, which also date from 1967. In fact, Lewis Carroll's stories just keep inspiring people to this day. There's even a display of modern political cartoons from British newspapers. And it's bang up to date too. They even include this fabulous cartoon of Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak by Chris Riddle from The Observer earlier this summer. There's also loads of fun things to do. You can make Alice's head grow. You can walk through a doll's house and pretend you are a giant Alice. And, as you can expect, mirrors play a big part. You have crazy mirrors where you can pretend that you're a little person. And there's also a room full of crazy lights and mirrors, which was really cool to look at, though we think that more could have been done with it. But an exhibition these days rarely comes without some sort of virtual reality experience. The queue for this moved very slowly. We waited 30 minutes to play a 4-minute game in which you had to throw hedgehogs through hoops made of cards in a game of croquet, based of course on the famous scene from the books. Beautiful to look at, but unfortunately the VR controllers were not paired properly, and the first time I tried it I was unable to actually pick up the hedgehogs. Eventually an assistant confirmed that indeed the controller wasn't working, and I got to have another go. This time it worked better, but it was still a little clunky. Later on in this video we try out another virtual reality experience at the Van Gogh show in Shoreditch, so don't go anywhere and stay on for that, as we will tell you which was better. On the whole, as long as you get a working controller, a curious game of croquet is fun. I would, however, probably say that it's not worth queuing 30 minutes for, but since there's no extra charge, if you do have the time and you're lucky with the queue, then yes, go for it. The graphics, based on illustrations by Christiana B. Williams, are really quite beautiful. However, if the queue is long and you happen to have a VR controller at home, then you can download it from the Viveport website for £3.99. We'll put a link in the description. Of course, there's a gift shop where you can buy the exhibition catalogue, copies of those psychedelic Joseph McHugh posters we saw earlier. But we don't need to buy that because Sharon can make her own. In fact, we've got on the wall, she gave me a few years ago, this fantastic psychedelic cat. I've also had a go at painting psychedelic cats. Not at the level of Louis Wain, but I've had a good go. And it was the very first painting I made.
Yes.
That's
true, yes, it was your very first.
Here it is now. I'll show it to you now, what I did. Yes, we like psychedelic cats. Meow. So, is it worth £20? Absolutely. As we said, we didn't pay for our tickets, but had we done so, we would have felt that we certainly would have got our money's worth. There was just so much to look at, and this video really doesn't even scratch the surface. And of course, you can spend the rest of the day browsing the fabulous permanent exhibition at the Victoria and Albert. So, all in all, it's a great day out. You do need to book in advance, and time slots appear to sell out quite quickly. The exhibition ends on the 31st of December 2021. New tickets are released every Tuesday at noon, and we don't think you'll regret it. £20 is an absolute bargain. The website is vam.ac.uk, and further details can be found in the YouTube description. But what about the Van Gogh experience? Let's head over to Shoreditch and the fabulous venue that used to be the Stapleton Horse and Carriage Repository at 106 Commercial Street. So, we are here at the Van Gogh Immersive Experience. This is the second Van Gogh exhibition that there has been in London this year. There was one in Kensington Gardens earlier on, which was the Van Gogh Alive. This is the Van Gogh Immersive Experience, and we're really looking forward to seeing it. It's a lovely building. It's one that actually, when we did our episodes on Aldgate, we tried to come into this building, but there were some workers who wouldn't let us in because maybe they were working on this. It's a horse-related place, I believe it's a listed building with a fantastic sort of spiral staircase for horses. But we're really looking forward to showing you what this is going to be like. And there we go. We do like Van Gogh. Like before, we're going to do this primarily as a voiceover, as we didn't want to annoy the other punters. Tickets to get in to just the exhibition are £19.90 per adult, so a similar price to the V&A's Alice in Wonderland Curiouser and Curiouser exhibition, but the virtual reality section is charged separately. If you pay £32, you get what is called a VIP ticket, which means you don't have to queue for the VR experience, and you get a Starry Night commemorative poster thrown in at the end. You start off with a couple of shots which sadly are non-alcoholic. They're actually Japanese tea, chosen because Van Gogh was a huge Japanophile. It would have been nice had they offered perhaps a shot of absinthe to the VIP ticket holders, considering Van Gogh probably drank a lot more of that than he did Japanese tea, but perhaps there were licensing issues. Now, we should point out that all the paintings on the wall are prints, not the real thing. Again, this is understandable. This is not a major exhibition at the National Gallery. This is a franchise that is simultaneously going on in 15 different cities around the world, including Leicester, York, New York, and Berlin. So, of course, it's only going to be prints. However, if, like us, you have been lucky to attend the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam and seen the real thing, this particular part of this London experience can seem a little underwhelming, particularly as the Amsterdam Museum costs just €19. But since travelling at the moment is such a faff, this is the next best thing to get your Van Gogh fix. But there's still some very cool things to look at in this section, such as this oversized 3D flower pot on which was projected various animated Van Gogh paintbrush flourishes, which was really beautiful and quite hypnotising. There was a short film about Van Gogh's painting techniques. There was this sculpture which, if you stand on this block, was meant to bring one of his works to life, but we couldn't really make it out. And there's this diorama of Van Gogh's bedroom in Arles. You can't walk into the bedroom and have your photo taken, as you were allowed to do at the now closed and, I should add, unrelated Van Gogh Alive exhibition in Kensington Gardens, but we do feel that this particular diorama in Spitalfields far more accurately compares to the bedroom in Van Gogh's paintings, particularly the colour scheme. There's also a recreation of the vestibule at the Saint Paul de Mouzol Asylum, where Van Gogh had checked himself in for over a year. In this room, you could colour in your own Van Gogh drawing with the supplied coloured crayons, scan it in at the machine at the end of the room, after which it would appear on the screen, and then stick your masterpiece up on the wall with the thousands of other very similar pieces. Though some of them did stand out for being different, particularly the ones of the iconic self-portrait. Some wannabe artists gave him sunglasses, others gave him a turban, while some others were just plain disrespectful. But now the virtual reality. As you can see, no queue really to jump with our VIP tickets, and with a fabulous quantity of VR controllers available, we don't expect there to ever be too much of a queue. This is not a game, more like a very moving journey, with narration, as you literally walk through 8 different and very familiar Van Gogh landscapes, in a 360-degree world in which you can turn around in your spinning chair and see above, below and behind yourself. This is actually quite a long experience, about 10 minutes, and is absolutely brilliant. In fact, it is probably in my all-time non-gaming top 3 VR experiences. If you don't do the VR bit, you are going to really regret it. It is worth splashing out the extra without any shadow of doubt. And now we go down to the real immersive bit. In this, you sit on the floor or on deck chairs while you are surrounded by projections of Van Gogh. In the background, music plays and the occasional screaming child, but that's to be expected, I guess. Here's a bit of it, though please to excuse the occasional crackle. There was a lot of electronic equipment in the room, obviously, which sometimes causes interference with our GoPros. After that, it was time to browse the gift shop, which had the usual Van Gogh-inspired merchandising, including this rather fabulous beanbag. At the end, we picked up our free posters of Starry Night. We had a choice of landscape or portrait, and as there's two of us, we got one of each, which we opened up once we got home. This is a poster, not a print, we should stress, and it includes a logo in the corner for the exhibition, which obviously turns it into more of a souvenir. Time to rate this experience. Again, in the interest of transparency, we should point out that we got complimentary VIP tickets. You can buy your tickets at vangoghexpo.com and, again, they are timed slots. And though the website says that there's very limited availability until at least January, and appears to be almost sold out for the rest of November, we did see plenty of people turning up without a booking and being able to buy tickets at the door, so do not despair. Had we paid for it, and had we chosen not to do the virtual reality bit, £19.90 would have seemed a bit steep. Paying £32, so £12.10 more, for the VR and poster thrown in makes it more worth it. Or you can forget about the poster and pay a £5 or so on the day for just the VR bit. Either way, make sure you do the VR. It is worth the extra. For us, being Londoners and having wanted to show our subscribers footage from inside the former Stapleton's horse and carriage repository for some time, this actually killed two birds with one stone, so it was win-win for us. So, assuming that you can only afford one of these London experiences, which one do we recommend you do during your visit to our fabulous city? Well, I guess that depends on what you're into. We think that, on the whole, the Alice in Wonderland exhibition is the better of the two. As there is so much more to look at, you are looking at original drawings, manuscripts and fashion, and the VR experience is thrown in for free. However, the VR at the Van Gogh Immersive Experience works so much better, and because they have so many controllers on standby, there was no queuing, unlike the 30 minutes we had to wait at the V&A. And so it was time to exit the fantastic former Stapleton's horse and carriage repository and into the bright November daylight of Spitalfields. All in all, whatever you end up doing and whichever exhibition you choose to see, have fun and, as ever, love your London! Till next time! From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond, love your London, have a banana.